Good morning, classmates, especially to our teacher, Ma'am Janina Silswat. By the way, my name is Wardaki Usman.
And my name is Zuhara M. Yamalan. Our topic for today is actually about Chapter 1, Lesson 1, the self from various philosophical perspectives.
If you have read the book already about this topic, you would see that there are several philosophers mentioned. In different periods and later, we are going to explain some of their concepts about the self. Basically, we are going to take a look at a self from different disciplines, but we will begin by looking at the perspectives of philosophy.
This lecture will be divided into 4 parts. First one, we will have a short activity. The second will be discussion about the philosophy. The third one is about philosophy and the self. And lastly, the application and assessment.
Before, we need to discuss our learning outcomes or lesson objectives for this lesson, and what is the expected of you after the discussion. So at the end of this lesson, students are expected to be able to explain why is it essential to understand the self,
Describe and discuss the different notions of the self from the point of view of the various philosophers across time and place.
compare and contrast how the self has been represented in different philosophical schools.
And lastly, examine oneself against the different views of self that were discussed in class.
Usually, the first question that we were asked always at the start of the school or even meeting someone or new people are what is your name?
That's the reason why we need to know ourselves, because we won't be able to interact with other people if we don't know who we are.
When other people tell us to introduce ourselves, we always say first our name before anything else.
When someone calls us by our name, we know that they specify us because we know who we are, based on our name.
As a student, our teachers told us to always write our name on our paper, so for that matter, our name signify us. That's the reason why our parents teach us to know and write our name, because our name represents who we are.
Our parents always thought of what is the best name for us. As we can observe, our parents already gave us a name during their pregnancy to us, until we were born.
Nothing in the world can stop the existence of our name. Not even the death can separate the bond between the person and their name, because our names are also written in our gravestone. When we die and our name remain forever.
Our names are special because it's not just a random combination of letters and numbers, but a good name that suits us. If our name is just a random letters, we won't be able to know ourselves, and we can even say it because we don't know how to pronounce it.
Some of us are named after the celebrity that our parents idolize and etc. For example, is my name Warda, which means flower in Arabic word. I'm not a flower, as you can see, I'm a person. My parents chose this name for me, but name is not the person itself, because it is only a signifier.
Everyone is tasked to discover oneself. So let's start with our part 1 discussion, which is activity. In this activity, I want you to ask yourself, so the question is, do I truly know myself or do you truly know yourself?
Have you ever asked yourself of who you are or who am I? We have here 6 questions. Try to ask yourself.
Number 1 is, how would you characterize yourself? How would you describe your personality to other people?
Number 2, what makes you stand out from the rest? What makes you special? What is your asset as a person? Or what makes you ahead in points from others?
Number 3 is, how has yourself transformed itself? How or what are the reasons to make yourself grow?
Number 4, how is yourself connected to your body? That's right. How is this two connected?
Number 5 is, how is yourself related to others' selves? What makes yourself the same to others?
Number 6, what will happen to yourself after you die? What will happen to your body or self after you die?
These 6 questions are related to our discussion today about philosophy. Try to ask yourself and then let's have a brief analysis about this question.
For example, in the first question, is it easy or difficult to answer? If it is easy to answer, then explain why. If it is easy and
If it is difficult to answer, then also explain why is it difficult. Let us categorize the answer if it easy or difficult.
now we will find out what is philosophy. It is important to understand the definition or concept of philosophy since we are talking about philosophical perspectives of the self.
Okay, what is philosophy? The word philosophy comes from the Greek philo or love and sophia wisdom, and so it's literally defined as the love of wisdom. More broadly understood, it is the study of the most basic and profound matters of human existence. Philosophical schools frequently develop in response to some perceived failure of religion to provide answers to fundamental questions.
The topic of exactly when and where philosophy first began to develop is still debated. But the simplest answer is that it would have begun at any place in the distant past the first time someone asked why they were born, what their purpose was, and how they were supposed to understand their lives. The term philosophy may apply to a formalized secular or religious system of thought, a personal construct, or a communal understanding of proper attitude and conduct, but in each case, the purpose of the system is to answer such questions.
The nature of the self is a topic of interest among philosophers.
The philosophical framework for understanding the self was first introduced by ancient Greek philosophers Socrates and Plato.
Socrates suggests to know thyself.
What is self and the qualities that define it?
Philosophers agree that self-knowledge is a prerequisite to a happy and meaningful life. Yes, that's true, because how would you know if you're happy if you don't know yourself or the things that makes you happy?
Before we start to our discussion, let us introduce our notable philosophers. It's also important to know who they are. So now, we will show you their pictures with brief information about them.
Socrates. Socrates was a Greek philosopher from Athens who is credited as the founder of Western philosophy and among the first moral philosophers of the ethical tradition of thought.
Plato. Plato was a Greek philosopher born in Athens during the classical period in ancient Greece, founder of the Platonist school of thought, and the academy, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world.
Augustine of Hippo. Augustine of Hippo, also known as Saint Augustine, was the theologian and philosopher of Berber origin and the bishop of Hippo, Regius in Numidia, Roman North Africa.
Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas was an Italian Dominican friar, philosopher, Catholic priest, and doctor of the Church. An immensely influential philosopher, theologian, and jurist in the tradition of scholasticism. He is also known within the letter as the Doctor Angelicus, the Doctor Communis, and the Doctor Universalis.
René Descartes. René Descartes was a French philosopher, mathematician, scientist, and lay Catholic who invented analytic geometry, linking the previously separate fields of geometry and algebra.
David Hume. David Hume was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, historian, economist, librarian, and essayist, who is best known today for his highly influential system of philosophical empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism.
Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher and one of the central Enlightenment thinkers. Born in Königsberg, Kant's comprehensive and systematic works in epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics have made him an influential figure in modern Western philosophy.
Gilbert Ryle. Gilbert Ryle was a British philosopher, principally known for his critique of Cartesian dualism, for which he coined the phrase "ghost in the machine." He was a representative of the generation of British, ordinary language philosophers who started Ludwig Wittgenstein's approach to philosophical problems.
Maurice Merleau-Ponty. His full name is Maurice Jean-Jacques Merleau-Ponty. He was a French phenomenological philosopher strongly influenced by Edmund Husserl and Martin Heidegger.
This part 3 is the longest. Why? Because philosophy and the self we will discuss, or we will focus on 9 philosophers. That's how many philosophers we will discuss for today.
Okay, those are the things that they problematize.
Socrates was one of the first one who was concerned with the problem of the self. So he asked questions about our existence and what does it mean when we say the word self. So that's how he differed with other philosophers. Because of his ideas, there are other philosophers who also question about the meaning of the self. the meaning of beingness.
He is famous for his quote, "Unexamined life is not worth living," which probably means that without knowing the purpose why you existed, or without discovering or knowing about yourself, which for him is very imperative, your life is not worth living.
For ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, the self is synonymous with the soul.
He believed that humans are dualistic and is divided into two parts, the body and the soul. Body is imperfect and impermanent.
Meaning, he is one of the first philosophers who believed that the person is composed of a body and a soul. I think most of us believe in this conceptualization of the self, and let's thank Socrates for that contribution.
Just remember that when we say soul in this discussion, it doesn't necessarily refer to the religious definition of the soul, but rather, for some philosophers, it may have or may not have anything to do with religion. But some of them think of soul as something that we cannot see, something that makes us move. It's an entity.
The soul. The soul is immortal. Socrates believed that every human possesses an immortal soul.
Human life does not end at one's death because one continues to live in the world after death. It means that he believes that death is not the end of existence, but a merely separation of soul from the body and departure of the soul for the eternal world.
In Socrates' concept of reality, it consists of two dichotomous realms, the physical realm and ideal realm. The physical realm is the changeable, transient, and imperfect. The body belongs to this physical realm.
On the other hand, the ideal realm is unchanging, eternal, and immortal. The soul belongs to the ideal realm.
Socrates was the first thinker to focus on the full power of reason on the human self. This is the questions that he wants to answer. Who we are, who we should be, and who we will become.
The soul strives for wisdom and perfection, and reason is the soul's tool to achieve an exalted state of life.
He said that our preoccupation with bodily needs such as food, drink, sex, pleasure, material possessions, and wealth keep us from attaining wisdom.
He believed that goodness or beauty is the most important of all.
A person can have a meaningful and happy life only if he becomes virtuous and knows the value of himself. That can be achieved through constantly soul searching.
For him, this is best achieved when one tries to separate the body from the soul as much as possible. He said that the worst that can happen to anyone is to live but die inside because of not knowing who they are.
Soul searching must begin at the source of all knowledge and significance, the self.
The Socratic method, the so-called introspection, is a method of carefully examining our thoughts and emotions to gain self-knowledge.
The next one that we have is Plato. He said that the soul is immortal.
He is a student of Socrates.
Plato believed that the self is synonymous with the soul.
Plato's philosophy of the self can be explained as a process of self-knowledge and purification of the soul. As you can observe, there's a similarity of what he said in Socrates' idea, and that can be explained because he is a student of Plato.
He believed that the self consists of three parts. The three parts of the soul: the rational soul, spirited soul, and appetitive soul.
The first one is the rational soul, or reason. Is the divine essence that enables us to think deeply, make wise choices, and achieve a true understanding of eternal truths.
The second one is the spirited soul, or passion, as the one managing people's emotions and feelings.
Includes basic emotions such as love, anger, ambition, aggressiveness, and empathy.
The third one is the appetitive soul, as the one possessing physical desires, which must be controlled at all times, includes our basic biological needs, such as hunger, thirst, sexual desire.
These three elements of ourself are in a dynamic relationship with one another, sometimes in conflict.
When conflict occurs, Plato believes that it is the responsibility of our reason to sort things out and exert control, restoring a harmonious relationship among the three elements of ourselves.
Plato believed that genuine happiness can only be achieved by people who consistently make sure that their reason is in control of their spirits and appetite. It means that not because of you feel hungry or you don't have money. You just rather to steal a food in order to eat, right? Appetitive because those are your needs.
Next, we have Saint Augustine. He said that I am that thing, therefore I am.
Saint Augustine basically integrated the ideas of Plato and the ideas or beliefs of Christianity.
He developed a more unified perspective on the body and soul.
Augustine's view of the human person reflects the entire spirit of the medieval world. This is around the fall of the Roman Empire.
According to him, the soul is united with the body, so that man can be entire and complete. He believed that man cannot be complete without the soul. If man is only existing with his body and without a soul, then he is not complete.
He also believed that humankind is created in the image and likeness of God. Since man is created in the image and likeness of God, he believed that the human person, being a creation of God, is always geared towards the good. He believed in the goodness of the human.
The self is known only through knowing God.
And self-knowledge is a consequence of knowledge of God. You will only achieve the knowledge of yourself. If you know God, that's what he believed in.
He said that knowledge can only come by seeing the truth that dwells within us. So what is the truth that he's trying to say in this? The truth of which Augustine spoke refers to the truth of knowing God.
He views self in a spiritual manner.
He seconded Plato's view that an individual is divided into two aspects, the imperfect, and which is earthly and capable of reaching immortality. Meaning, he believed in the concept of heaven, that when death comes, the body is meant to vanish, but the soul is the one capable of attaining immortality through living with the divine in heaven.
The next one what we have is Thomas Aquinas. He supported Augustine's Christian view on self, while incorporating ideas from the Aristotle.
He believed that man is composed of two parts, the matter and form. Matter or hal in Greek refers to the common stuff that makes up everything in the universe. On the other hand, form or morph in Greek refers to the essence of a substance or thing.
Claim that the soul of the form is capable of existing apart from the living body, for soul is incorruptible.
He said that our knowledge or awareness of ourselves depend on what we have experienced in life.
Next, we have René Descartes. The phrase, I think, therefore I am, is the keystone of Descartes' concept of self.
He is famous for saying, I think, therefore I am. Or in Latin, cogito ergo sum. I'm thinking, so it means there's a concept of self, or it means I exist.
He said that the fact that I can doubt or think is already an evidence that I exist.
For him, the act of thinking about the self of being conscious is in itself proof that there is self. Basically, what he is trying to say is that when you think, that is already a proof that there is self.
He is the father of philosophy who supported the theory of dualism.
He believed that there are two distinct entities, the cogito and extensa. Cogito, the things that thinks, which is the mind, and extensa, or extension of the mind, which is the body.
He believed in the existence of mind and body.
The soul and body are independent of one another, and each can exist and function without the other.
The self as a thinker entity is distinct from the self of a physical body. In other words, the thinking self can exist independently of the physical body.
The next one that we have is David Hume. He said that there is no self.
He is a Scottish philosopher who believed in the idea of empiricism.
What is empiricism? Empiricism is that a person's awareness or knowledge about oneself is dependent on their experiences in life.
He views self as an accumulation of different impressions and does not exceed the physical real.
For him, there is no permanent self because impressions of things are based from our experiences where we can create our ideas and knowledge. Thus, it may improve, totally be replaced.
Hume suggests that if people carefully examine their sense experience through the process of introspection, they will discover that there is no self.
According to Hume, what people experience is just a bundle or collection of different perceptions, impressions, sensations, ideas, thoughts, and images.
The idea of personal identity is a result of imagination.
Therefore, there is no self.
Next, we have Immanuel Kant. He said that we construct the self.
For him, people have mind consisting of apparatuses or impression, which enables one to perceive and observe everything around them.
He established that the collection of impressions, and different contexts is what is only takes to define a person.
He claimed that the idea of self is not only an object that perceives and reacts to whatever it is that we are experiencing. We also have the capabilities to understand beyond those experiences and be able to think and have a clear identification of who we are and establish a sense of self that is unique and distinct from others.
According to Kant, it is the self that makes experiencing an intelligible world possible because it is the self that is actively organizing and synthesizing all of our thoughts and perceptions.
In other words, the self constructs its own reality, creating a world that is familiar and predictable.
Through our rationality, the self transcends experiences.
Next is Gilbert Ryle. He said that the self is the way people behave.
He is a British philosopher who defines self as a behavior presented by the person, and that behavior is the reflection of our mind and the manifestation of who we are.
He doesn't believe that mind and body are two separate entities because these two cannot be separated.
Once we encounter others, their perception of what we do, how we act and behave will result to understanding of other people and establishing who we are.
The self is best understood as a pattern of behavior, the tendency or disposition for a person to behave in a certain way in certain circumstances.
Ryle's concept of the human self thus provided the philosophical principle. I act, therefore I am.
René Descartes said that I think, therefore I am, while Gilbert said I act, therefore I am.
In short, the self is the same as bodily behavior.
Last but not the least, Merleau-Ponty. He said that the self is embodied subjectivity.
He is a phenomenologist.
The mind-body bifurcation that has been going on for a long time is a futile endeavor and an invalid problem.
He believed that all knowledge of ourselves and our world is based on subjective experience.
The self can never be truly objectified or known in a completely objective or sort of way.
So, that's the end of our discussion for philosophy and the self. For the last part of our discussion, we will have your application and assessment.
If you will look at the Understanding the Self module, you will see the application and assessment for Lesson 1.
What do we want you to do? I want you to create your own definition of the self.
Create your own definition and identify if it is in Socrates, Plato, Saint Augustine, René Descartes, David Hume, Immanuel Kant, Gilbert Ryle, or Merleau-Ponty. And also, I want you to summarize in your own words. What is self according to the following philosophers?
That's all. Thank you.